Where would our balance be?
All our
Somewhere in here.
Yep.
No, I can't hear you.
Oh, where are the ballots?
What?
The ballots. Yeah, judge is ready.
No. Let me just grab some of these paper and I'll be ready.
Rashid, here, please.
No, I'll just shoot it. Okay.
Yeah.
Before you get it,
I'll flash it when it's not ready if you want.
that's fine. Same context, right? Okay.
It's actually almost exactly the same, just made it tighter short.
Oh.
Just flash it when you're trying to.
Thanks. I do. You do?
Is there a file over there?
Yeah, is.
Say file name.
Oh, is there a file right there? Did this file you mean?
Yes.
I got it.
You have to read it.
Yeah, I have it. Thanks. I'm just hoping you want to see. 1A, the same title.
Exactly, I can almost see that. Is that computer running like Windows 98 or something?
Maybe.
Looks like it.
Maybe. I will not concede. All right.
Are you all ready?
Yes.
Okay. Condition 1 of the status quo. The space loss is marked general fail in the status quo. Probably people solves. Counting 11. Good people survive. Alternating the S loss and making the dimension control. X1 dimension fall short. These are slightly S loss with the people's only few level. Less than anything expect much of it. Against him guy over the naked for S loss good. The Christian which might making costs smaller. I'm also functioning but for us to create jobs. Why exam use on HV. Relevant $10 million for cost savings. Allows common competition judge on cost the lowest way for energy markets contribute. Simulate the use commercial launch industry. Increasing the industry cost $1 million of basically. Allows gas not issue 2 plus reducing reduce customers. And thus the plan. The United States government should ensure the deployment of propel and depot architecture. Condition 2 is leadership first cooperation. The was for effective international cooperation. That include all 2019 was going to enable the human presence with the picture budget budgets. Door balloon expression planning century on a formal present architecture force innovation reduce all expression and contribute force sources and truly effective international cooperation. This is one of the critical equivalent of air squad activity for the floating aircraft initiative of the early 20th century and space cooperation spills over weaponizations is inevitable right now because of mutual mistrust of plan cells and arms race. Middle doll 2008 when he specifically made initiatives from McKinsey people to Russia, a partnership helped to Russia publicly accomplished in other regions and China's use of cooperation space China over the place program and speculative attention to the China engagement in the secret program. It would improve strategic communication, engagement with less proactive actions, especially cooperation to resource world leader, and avoid a space race and a dangerous space arms race and that risk accidental warfare. Movement mission all 2001. The participants weapons will subdue space forward to choose person creating temporary automated devices, planners, because those back conflict. These space weapons may more never had projectile, continuing information of the more than nuclear weapon, and each retaliate nuclear weapons actual war for conclusion to country with the most striking conflict ever. And the second component is unipolar propellant was a key to defense leadership in Germany, Spain 2010. The British United States also sees when China, Asian going to it will take on mentality in education, technology, government, also to be able to know videos, Thomas and major marks in the Cold War, with a new Cold War looming, the department of programs in American states, West Form, Central policy, where we can find devastation if we ban the leadership space in China's European or any other nation fighting conflict, totally adverse consequences of sending the use of the carbon emission ban these holes, return to the as possible, maintain the one major missing component of a coherent, sustaining space rocket may be in place for filling the experience for airspace for filling people, disabilities, existing by the leadership, non-democratic people, if the use of it will be impossible to speak for the benefit of psychological, political, economic, scientific, the use is hard to cost to follow. The lesson has not been lost to our competitors, and absent the plan use loses essential capabilities and global power. Diamond 11, there's especially necessary to take use techniques for being able to use that resource for prosperity and as the whole space in trouble. It is laying off the thousands of skills for speculators very lost forever. This strategic vital industry will see competitors such as China grow, and America's such especially dangerous if it is for a large proportion of America's global power will disappear. Presence is actually for democratic and purposes because I believe that's the use of Apollo to enhance global position, keeping space neutrality. NASA's indirectly contributing to overall use power, and how Germany solved nuclear war King 314. In 1941, there are only done democracy states that more than 100 global nuclear rules since 1950, survived by average 4% for 6 years. No great powers have gone to war. The world of my most American world is the visual issue of democracy. In a post-American world, they developed a shift towards great autocracy. China, Russia, and India, iPhone 60, fear democratic regencies might get lose, kill the goods with hands, how to keep themselves and themselves alive. But you need multiple systems and historical countries now. There's stable to be small and more, make your person constantly occurs. In multipolarity, American also so there's no better recipe for comparison. Uncertainty about who holds the upper hand. There's nothing inevitable world, the creative world, international orders, on evolution, is an imposition. American power to constantly introduce American one of the global collapse. The alternative was chaos in Houston, general conflicts, global great power war, collapse trade, and spreads economic national protections. January 2011, after the main use to power complex and with this, but working hard to avoid history test for ultimately combination to find use interest is more remarks little trade and flexible financial mechanisms made own country world return to racial trade compensation rapidly, multiple other system activity, the original organization of power plays, force waves, supremacy, power plays, and struggle was 0 sum element, or will have to a great war, reimbursed trade protection balls into very restrictive anti-globalization barriers, and trade is key to solve war. Garcia 11 more of the bottoms of the pieces down by cross countries. Good by way of not to do so. They get war from constant activity involving nations, if easy sections to add, what is the armies of defensive goods made in Norway capable of considerable value. The evidence of one of the most prosperous actions to take from the buyer rather than take of course that moves the nation consisting of power nation and always have been resolved major remedy from the modern advances that can cause a larger due to economic independence and nation to deliver them fight. The worst nation have benefit economic integration to move sufficiently to pacify them. The peace is proved durable. It also because warfare moves to feudal nation transition prosperity how win war European sport globally prosperity war and as well as fund value. War becomes a durable anachronism and war is the lowest level in history because of use supremacy. 11. Violent conflict has been deeply because violent conflict among the nations things begin in order to regard them chapter industrial war. Backstory democracy purpose peace and they apply our war the political mechanisms for peace and anything to the other. How is it an array of peaceful factors that have been working with the liberating state explain that circle got started factors in American Germany. Edward's political theory guys the global economy remain open. One power country mistake the lead paying for the global flood goods keeping the seals open and threatening with job production in the world. American hegemony decauses decline for the world. Use more positive with the self-interest and the power. Use it to decause American causes economic growth and trade in which rate of violence and rational. First Washington is part of the country market capitalism same like growth is what usually victory could give credibility to alternative less market house and the best model. It also limited incentive to face of violence, globalization caused by the use of global hedge fund. This thing has made a concern to spread amongst Washington, spread amongst with those some become more widespread. Absolute decline means the use will come up for uncooperative, desperate causes, lash out goals in 7 people the Democrats states capable to enable the government as they order the shaping of challenge the prince of power and heads. And we become desperate enough for short fortune came forth this engagement force. Major war hedge war was because they find it difficult to defense over Chinese as much as advantage also possibly ability to watch or race for war and after transition in the alternative to Germany's transition wars. Walton 7, it would costly possibly start going to break to Israel. If the world was likely, and your system can have stability, effective military to aggressively consider a powerful logical venture. The multiple system would collapse the multiple system should receive care feeding is vulnerable to a third world war. Such collision would have to find out result being war that would dwarf World War II. The use of physical and more powerful, the Oxford liberty way of faving close vital ensures transition to multipolarity and as gentleman of Washington can minimize mobility of great power war and focus on strategic charts, credo, averting crisis escalation, reject the infinite number of root causes more for. There is war focused on ethnic differences, options, poverty, social justice, worse, grief, from many factors around the world. Some of these factors make country to order. There may be infinite factors and motivating aggression, not that it exists in the factors, but the North War, and control conflict. No one's able to demonstrate there were kind of robust correlation with the attrition cause war. They reflect different reasoning of the difficulties overcoming these unapproached, depend on the solution by Davis war for generations to governmental structures by central and aggressive inside major wars, adaptive democracy, and absence of a picture deterrence of general conflict, all vital cases. There are some too many mistake variables which is touching against the real world and results that suggest usefulness over other contracts and studies so that balance is decreasing now because of everything consistent with the affirmative. It's only a question of sustaining card dynamics running structure of the system. Figure 11, the one class much worse. Balance has been declined, but it's not going to balance is your persistent visible for million years. Wars with that's what wars with taking for arguality. Can't have balance. Balance is 7 to power opposing control. Leading to various practices. Countries off 50-fold decline. Zero comply to give way to trade. The some taken for granted. Italy, Australia, we're not going to listen to such goals with great powers supposed to war. The 17th century was a violent ignores the second half may not be contributed to the first. No nuclear states have stopped as well. Political stance opposing their market trade and international organization which has assisted all the social reduced like the conflict violence and president feel on the percentage points and the Russian forces do really to keep the peace. Balance has been climbing to historical and circumstances fight for better angels. The most obvious possible forces of the state with the model and applying a force of the passive enforcement of commerce and economic works to the exchange good for people to become more valuable. Though the election of American China far more unlikely to occur war, kick all to power, irrational objectivity in human affairs, balance to refund problem to be solved rather than the economy should be won. And shock the democracies are the only price of your conflict. Globalization and liberal norms have eradicated warfare and structural violence. Only the overfield field study proves or good night. We are now living one of those people periods in the common variabilities of popular custom notion that wars deeply rooted in nature. Now it seems to be a lot of culture for which culture helping us eradicate war can be on virtue consistent to this war since the vision of Iraq and north with human across the region for a clear downward trend and your the death conflict less more percent fatalities across the Indian history and previous one striking there's no evidence the group of guys from humans about 12,000 years ago. That's James warfare to publishing as the environmental stress against 70 people in one country culture groups only after culture foundation and the deportation of us and then killing a burning pair over the environmental bombs nation with civil loss of resolving to be sculpted factors making the drop in war one to the surge and never could really governments. Democracies rarely ever fought each other. Democracies with those bonds with the nations opportunities rushes for this fall. Decrease demand for service inflation otherwise it's social unrest. Average less spends a double to make less. Political risk life for all Harvard psychology picture of Pinker goes in that's increasingly independent on and empathetic towards others. Of course, the world man's place and the disruptive unpredictable a global catastrophe could plunge us back into violent conflict and chaos. Marked it Hobbesian chaos.
Cool. First question, what does it mean to be a hegemon?
Unipolarity is defined by a multitude of characteristics.
Yeah.
I mean, our evidence says that control over the global economy, control over technological superiority,
Technological
having a strong military,
control of the economy. Those
having a perception in the minds of other countries, of the leaders and the governments of other countries, that the U.S. is a hegemon.
All right,
Those
so
are only the four bigger
how are the
bigger
first
ones.
three threatened? A strong military, like economies, like commerce
The
between
Schmidt
nations.
evidence.
Yes, let's talk about your Schmidt evidence.
Okay, the Schmidt evidence says that the reason why there's a possibility of a new Cold War in the status quo is that other countries perceive U.S. space capabilities declining, and space is crucial to global leadership for a multitude of reasons. The Schmidt evidence says, well, first of all, the benefits are psychological, political, economic, and scientific. I can go more in-depth in all of those and why those are key to the military.
My question is, it seems like, why do countries give a nuts, I guess, care about what we have in space? Yeah. Why do, like, whether or not we're like a strong space?
Well, first of all, a space program not only builds wealth, economic vitality, and educational momentum through technology, etc.
So are those in
First
terms
of
of
all,
agenda that you have to solve?
I believe we solved those.
You solve
Educational momentum through
momental. Which card says that?
the Schmidt evidence,
Where does this Schmidt evidence say that?
the very second highlighted line.
It's at what, the second line?
A space program not only builds wealth, economic vitality, and educational momentum. Dominance in space was one of the major factors leading to the end of the Cold War.
So like, Schmidt is a former U.S. senator, and he also went to the moon.
He did go to the moon.
So doesn't that seem like it's a little biased? He's probably like, I really love going to the moon.
I mean, the historical facts are not really that much in question.
You don't think the fact that your main Solvency author was an astronaut is, I don't know.
I don't think it's that relevant in the context of the historical facts.
So let's
he's
talk
citing.
about your Goldstein evidence. It says, it's in the context of absolute decline when the United States becomes uncooperative.
No, absolute as opposed to relative.
Right.
That's not
How
like
does it
absolutely there's
So
no
your argument is that a decline in space leadership is the absolute decline of America.
No.
Like if China gets to
You're
the
using the word
first,
absolute
it's
in two
over.
different contexts. This evidence is in the context of the U.S. losing its current capabilities, which are broader than just like the military. And
Right, okay.
also we have internal links to them.
Okay, hold on. If they're broader than just military, like it just seems like your app is a little ridiculous if your argument is that if China gets to the moon first, it's over.
I mean,
Is that the thesis of your app? If China gets there first.
Well, because when you say it like that, you literally do not include any of like the 8 internal links that Rishi's already explained. So yes, if you explain
Out
it
of
like that,
the
it
card
does
from
sound
an
ridiculous.
astronaut.
no, and the Diamond evidence as well.
Your paper evidence says another pacifying force has been commerce. Blah blah
Yeah.
blah. People become more valuable. This
Owen
is
evidence
more, much
says-
more likely. Why would us being a space leadership influence commerce at all?
Our Owen evidence and our other Kagan evidence says that hegemony is the key internal link to commerce. The second argument.
So they won't
Well,
trade
Schmidt
with
evidence
us
says that we're key,
because
that the plan
we're
is
not
key to
a
the U.S.
space
economy.
leader.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, that's fine. The order's 4 off, then solvency, then the advantage. Have a good time.
Yes, you can.
You might have international.
And it's all on paper.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
We've already got the thing there.
They're on paper too.
I have no idea how this
4 off solvency advantage is already.
You betcha.
Can I go to the bathroom real quick before?
Ooh, that sounds pretty appealing. I'm gonna do
No,
that as
we
well.
can't go together.
Wait.
I don't want you looking at me.
Rohan, am I allowed to use the bathroom?
No.
He's in the middle.
I'm the youngest one.
Is it okay? Oh, I guess that's a yes.
You just hurry.
Alright, I'll be right back.
Start your stopwatch. You guys use this time as prep.
Oh, we're stealing so much prep.
Yeah. No, I know.
Well, you're going there to confirm.
He said it's delicious.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
extra.
Just a little bit awkward.
Yeah.
But, oh yeah, you said that. You didn't understand. What did Ryan do?
The party time was good. I saw Bobby Shaw.
I saw it.
And then he gave me this awesome case idea. It's now 5 off. So.
I was during the last debate, was this really the stuffed animal? Wasn't that the same stuffed animal that was here?
Oh, well, they left all their
Yeah.
stuff.
Was that
They left all their stuff.
Yeah.
stuffed animal included?
No, we got this. They took it and then Dusty gave it to us.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Sart.
I think it's originally your stuffed animal.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't get the reference.
The last team was just like, that's our stuffed animal. I was actually more surprised that it changed hands than anything. They were like, that's our stuffed animal. That seemed like a reason why.
We have a whole bag of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a whole bag of stuffed
Yeah,
animals.
we go hard. It's right there.
We're not kidding.
They made clear it was theirs.
Right here.
They're actually showing you the bag.
Oh, yeah, bag of them.
Yeah. You know, when we get our night terrors. There's the.
Yes, that's very true.
There.
Everybody ready?
Yeah.
You good, Nathan?
Yeah, I'm just focusing.
Alright. First off is the interpretation, violation, exploration requires human presence on tonight. I'm going to give you rights and definition of exploration, human activity, national interest, scientific research, technological innovation, exploration, and only accomplished. Human presence and so development, living since seven space technology, not development, we define space development, expansion of human projects in space and standards, limits their military, commercial, observational, altering satellites, exposed, limits already huge topic can be predictable ground satellites launch. The time so there's no unique link to perception distance, only human exploration sends. Single robotic development should be accountable on topic as voter fairness, education, jurisdiction. Next up is death cult. A, the one he sees an introduction of death debate, impacts of debate is bad. One is trivialization, death debating causes a study fascination with the spectacle of death, the strange debate, to a death cult denies the chance to avoid death index. Roger at 93. Deafness in the debate, no reality, most of the best rationality, the dominating self, humanities, but never an object of contemplation to itself. It's self-realization, reaches, we can experience so destructions, aesthetic culture, there's a very formation of fascism, achieving something of culture, death, the point of tribulation, which reduces experience, rational administration, mostly exploding finalities, to his body counts, death debating, or reduce people's lives to mere numbers for debaters to consume. The game, Boger, 93 resistance, their death, the principles, equipment, the neutralize of life, levels to reduce the quantity of death, but nothing but the decision was drawn. If die according to social behavior, death is conceded to you. It's no longer even death, but something completely neutralized and constantly described. Also calculations for a view planning system where it's possible to operate. Social service under the sign of the plan, and people negatively have to introduce that to max debate because you're 80. Within the educational setting, the task is to see how and when teaching me may distinguish between what and should not be done, analyzing death, interpreting its every significant nuance, advances the cause. All those who delve into the meaning of life and see is a gateway argument how we should be allowed to debate if they win that we cannot use death and max, and the rest of what NC applies if we will not make cross applications from other close approved life. Next up is the K. All forms of value in human life lends the possibility of devaluation during time. Device interest about materiality, technologies we draw, concept of ethical significance, artificial is anthropocentric, ultimately the measure of significance, the measurement, the expression of where everything is value in human terms, rough is worth, assessment saying, value object of estimation, every value is subjective estimate, not all beings we, it's late for us, we are all forced, we all become a setting of certain frame beings, like process, come conceal our alternative is embrace the absolute nothingness of every other, is the only moral imperative, critical rupture violence, turn time. Instead of any values system around which the absolute otherness, however, there should be only or impelled between the ethics of artificial beyond, anthropocentric metaphysics, the recognition of the impossibility, making person hospitalized, the culture of humans, or making the decision about validity, being able to be taken sensuous, significance, we are not for the feeling of pain, watching pain, be a critique for significance, critique for worthiness, being like us and ethics of those nothing in common, every attempting on find inclusive categories will violates every entity, wrote the inanimate suggests how wholly other human, there is a reflection of the human opposite throughout with your ego's concept of single universal community. What about the inanimate other? So yielded to be the stick for the act of being itself, they are infinite and wholly other more than the human other if there's infinite others, every other local consequence of race exist. Why should we have no base for excluding the inanimate other? And their arguments that the world is getting better, reason to vote neoliberalism was co-social injustice to undercut action based on shared responsibility. They're also wrong, Row 320. Neoliberalism supports both their interest and appeal to common sense while doing everything possible to deny climate change and cause soil alters issues every day. Conversations of people who financially perform the social material appearing structures of racism, poverty, environmental degradation, dispute, seeing one trivial language of freedom and rights, ethics of structural injustice become obscure, they are objects of scorn, symptomatic of an effective political and economic system. Next up is the counterplan. Tax the National Aeronautics and Space Administration should initiate a scientific integrity review regarding what the United States federal government should ensure the deployment of the propellant depot architecture adopts such a method only if it meets compliance requirements of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration Scientific Integrity Framework. And it's also to be NASA's new scientific integrity allows for review and revision of existing quality space travel in 1219. NASA with a new framework on scientific integrity that strengthens the government affairs science. NASA we should evaluate the existing policies and satellite opportunities to improve on them. The agencies are revising policies. NASA will continue evaluating and improving policies within the framework through its formal review process. NASA failed to comply collapses the National Scientific Integrity Policy Initiative by State 815. NASA decided does not need new scientific integrity, but also the White House handles may foretell what the scientific integrity effort will cost. Other agencies declare their current policy sufficient Obama order all agencies to have scientific integrity. This will go into partial compliance with Obama's scientific and progress policy solves warming and environmental construction. Gosh, 90. or 990. Proposition guarantees scientific agreements with support after years of interference in policy. Restore science place in policy with regard to special climate change driven by scientific substance. Push the policy interference and science weaken our ability to respond to challenges. So we can spend on partial research via points for appropriately involved. Scientific decision climate change environmentalists maintain the industry, the support of human influence. How much is what was ignored. All over the administration of science advice, expertise, ideology, EPA, the scientific science for feedback when the administration be covering warming, reducing pollution, cleaning up regulating chemicals and water to the U.S. Needs to leave from a greener planet, buckling under pressure from obvious. That's giving us for a better world extinction take away. We need to prepare for 4 degrees of warming. The idea that we should adapt to the first season is absurd. We're doing extinction of the concept of ice caps become level, bringing sea level rises. Weather would become extreme, though drought floods, hurricanes, carrying capacity would be hugely reduced. Planes would die. Winds call for this former chief scientific advisor warned we see runaway increase. Case. Depots fail and more expensive. Their authors rely on flawed methodology that should be rejected. Star this card, Griffin 11-2. Whether depots make sense of the question is how we can explore reality, although they have not the depot may value and the problem can be harvesting from space we don't die yet. Position exploit with such research gas cells, DCV and need the challenge for depots marginal class appeal to lower or launch for transfer for trains, ships, and airplanes without the exceptional larger vehicles used. But after all, long haul transportation, why space especially when depots are used, transportation arguments must be slightly least expensive means to show what code the user professes the government that you lost, make it on volume field depots example of the difficult to solve small quantities higher cost to be accurate. Checking the depots once the price comes to the commercial launch of fuel. If it over the such claims should be considered suspect even the contract law offers little assurance of the wire. Whereas additional funds to seek continuing service, there's no government back. Many potential issues of tension and also feels feasibility also exist. Could escape illegal cheap liquid boil off with 10%. Feel responsibility should be skeptical, unproven claims or low oil rates. Most fees will come on one cost billions of launch true. That we don't have a heavily lifter, heavily lifter, go for strategic capability. Tracing precise absent constraints any plans to argue safe. Using field depots ignore key theme. We need a heavy lifter, wasteful destruction support. Really best assembly causes this up here. Supplementation if we actually want to accomplish anything must we should do is put on the heart's problems, carriage, and fuel storage and services. The next steps beyond LEO.
Go ahead.
Good, thanks. Space multilateralism possible hitch instead. Multiple approaches to secure the use of space are difficult to produce obstacles of the desire. Obtain consensus required for procedural matter. There's widespread reluctance to enact new legislative constraints on space activity and their internal link evidence. It's awful just as we share the deep of the stories and the spill over to broader cooperation disputes. Further issues still exist in war with the space war when NASA because countries want to destroy their own satellites and cooperation now.
No.
And China's plan for Moon to Mars, which China daily 9. There's a man placed the Moon by 2030 and line by 2050, and that's all interest script along with the chase. So the Moon Americans will respond when there's this country's simply looking to accomplish with turn. The frontier doesn't inspire people, it kills innovation, but the US will second with geographic challenging and notice the US is president of the great process. Super ourselves without geographic frontier rise. Promise after the closing American period during that time the US landed the Moon. Without geographic frontier, we face the greatest challenges in space leadership since Apollo 72. Other than the industrial program, the US will continue to lead space exploration for half a century because we have laid the foundation for success of building sound national and human in place. We have worked to commit ourselves to ensure records we have for years to come. Our destinations are ambitious about super private companies freeing NASA to focus on deep space within your bones. Private companies take over cargo shipments by 2015 and industry take over astronaut transport now as well as one government budget lay on of it. NASA officials said the space station is proceeding on the assumption we'll be dealing with flat budget for this foreseeable future. We believe our current flatline funding profile offers sufficient resources and hegemony is unsustainable. We the Americans increasing on the ability that hegemons will face with wars and kind of when it could not come back in the US was only fits of our international politics during a period. Traces of bombs should be trying to symbolize the event multiple war the US solution was coexist with several rising powers and dozens of conflict was summit. US Germany is not the primary cause of stability, hegemonic stability argument over states in the world. US may be showing neighbor disorder to self-craft. The freedom with US involvement in single split work imperial evidence suggest slow connection between US second and international stability in the 1990s and grew more peaceful. US can force the stable team to believe that security is in danger. Military had to address military back in US security dilemmas of missions obviously no regional balancing occurred once the stable was the US military was submitted. Hence is magnitude global conflict decline while the US gets military spending and the expedition of the decline. Warning governments complex again, I'm getting defense international domestic political institutions, pollution ideas and norms society activist America, maintain the vote of globalization will continue. Economic interdependence, the dangerous constraint, terrestrial security, environmental fighting, and ever reform, no matter which country is the strongest in the empirically. There's no relation between polarity, war, dollar, and again. Frequency of severity worse in the system classified multiple and bipolar as equivalent polarity as little shift to patterns of war findings report. Wars are unrelated to number of major powers in the system and don't trust their awesome all time. Possible to go on inside Washington heavily with use of military power and every one thing they listen to enthusiasts if it is America's number one hard demonstration center structured plot or personal legitimacy with the US intervening.
Okay. Alright, status of the alternatives.
There's only one.
Counterplan and alternative.
Both conditional.
Okay. Your Geller and Singer evidence says that in the period from 1495 to 1559 and from 1495 to 1520, bipolar and multipolar systems had no distinction between them in terms of the relative conflicts.
Wait, where are you pointing to in this card?
The whole thing. I mean, that's like what the thing's about. What does that say about unipolarity or the
It just says includes warfare in the European
where does it include? Where
for
does
the
it
restricted temporal period of 1495 to 15, system classified as multipolar, is used as bipolar.
So exactly what I said.
Yeah, we have empirical examples that
They're
there's...
not about unipolarity or anything recent, correct?
Wait.
Where does that card even say the word unipolarity?
It says that either multipolar and bipolar systems and
Yeah,
probably,
so not
it says the
probably
conclusion that polarity is little relationship to patterns of work.
No, it says in the case studies, polarity has
He
little
concludes
relationship.
that...
Yes? Oh, okay. All right. The budget trade-off argument. Did you read you cut the SLS?
No, I said SLS won't go over budget.
Okay.
Just the Leon one, right?
All right. Well, your evidence says that there are current flatline funding profiles. Why doesn't that prove that, or if their budget is flat, why doesn't that prove that your argument that we will suddenly gain interest in space when China goes to the moon is false, if the budget is flat?
What do you mean?
Like, if there's no will politically to increase the space budget, how would we increase the space budget magically when China goes to the moon?
Yeah, well, that argument is that once China's on the moon, we will want to compete with China again.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty logical.
Does well, this card says that budget constraints are very important. Do you have evidence that overcomes budgeting economic issues?
I mean, where does it say that budget constraints are very important?
We will be dealing with flat budgets.
That means that they're breaking even. They're fine.
I mean,
they might get budget increases. Congress would probably appropriate more funds if we got
Okay,
space.
your Giroux evidence.
Yeah.
Can you point to a statistic or a study that Giroux cites about why neoliberal, like the existence of warfare?
Yeah, let me take a look at this. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I mean, I think what he's talking about.
When you start
even
with,
though
I mean,
no. What he says is in the context of like your Pinker evidence and stuff. Pinker is talking about a certain type of violence, but ignores other violence that still occurs, and even more.
What's
so.
your internal link to that violence?
What's our internal
How do
link
you
to that
solve
violence? Through the ethics of decay, I guess.
Does
And
the
also-
ethics of the critique get rid of neoliberalism?
No.
Then why is well, you tag this card, and the card is about neoliberalism? How do you solve that?
No.
I mean,
No, it's not about neoliberalism. First card.
No. Obviously, it's like Jerome loves, hates neoliberalism, but our argument is more about the way
Yes.
that certain populations have been excluded from like the structure of contemporary society. So like, that doesn't necessarily mean that we like resist neoliberalism, but we do resist the exclusion that.
You think the
occurs.
alternative might result in the end of neoliberalism?
No.
Okay, what does the alternative do?
The alternative, I guess, is an ethical opening to the
What is-
beings of all beings.
What is okay? That mean?
Some breath, please, yeah.
Want the answer to that question?
That's okay. But I think right now what's more important is that you threw a bunch of stuff at me, and I'm pretty sure you didn't read all of it.
Yeah, do you want me to go through that?
Yeah, I don't know what you didn't read. Just it was like all in the case. It's the
Okay,
stuff I'm confused about.
Yeah, alright,
Yeah.
I'll just
You
read
can
it.
just sort. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
It's got a circle next to it, I read it.
Okay. That's an effective method.
And then what's the internal link for the character solving warming exactly?
Yeah, Obama's national scientific integrity policy makes it
Yeah,
so
I'm
we can
just
have effective research in government.
Okay, and we don't have that now because people are lying.
More or less.
Yeah, pretty much. But I think there's arguments. Well,
More.
the way the-
It's more.
It's a joke.
Always more.
It's a joke. Yeah. So you didn't read the pastoral evidence?
No.
Okay.
Which evidence?
It's one card you can read.
And then this card goes into intervening.
Is this the last card in
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry about that. Oh, and also this one, but I don't think it really matters after.
Yeah. You're welcome.
You got me 4 sheets now.
It's in Dropbox. Right?
Oh, that's problematic. That's not going to be good.
Where's the? Can I get that here?
No, I don't. I'll shove off myself.
No?
I can really do that.
Don't
I
be lost.
already signed my ballot, so I'm not obligated to vote, but it doesn't say after negative, so I don't vote. I think I'm just gonna vote for polls.
Yeah. Also, Judy Butler really kind of left these comments, so they're very good.
My house must still lay out. Yeah.
The order, solvency, cooperation, the leadership was loft and hedge.
Sorry, can you go over one time?
Yeah. Solvency, advantage,
Yeah.
then key human,
Mm-hmm.
then death cult, then we'll do introna, then the counterplan. And introna is the second non-death cult based critique.
Yeah, that's all fine.
Yes, framework argument. Okay. All right.
Really quickly, one more time. Just off.
The header says K definitely.
T human, and then the death cult framework, the negative business, the introna critique, the otherness critique, and the counterplan. All right. Is anybody not ready? We solved Griffin and Pace are wrong, struck the card twice as many times you did there, several love Griffin and Pace, but if ever written an article defending the argument or fly, actually wouldn't post that element one, as well, if he goes to enter the second half, we maximize space for given red CSS and Rohan officers, the benefit people, even that extra countries or needed Griffin and testified, one can go to move without the other, if one is Chinese long march 5, Griffin is developed at 8L5, it would be possible with the Chinese, the Chinese liberation march of the cost of solutions, and thus deciding whether to people, one was taking out the cost, so it's going to cost 80 people, it's small version to go different latitude, do that happen in space, is 10% the cost of SS with no cost, they're making zero revenue, the little people that is actually real. That is the problem. The association shuttle just because otherwise they wouldn't get to work, but it wasn't signed. Hamilton loading the standard. The constellation would have the budget operated. As a tool, the better. The high flight rate is not only relevant to those who cheap is a common sales as considered wider. If you even the best, if you could say if flutter will be unaffordable, I find you decide will be the best market. The market card and beating Griffin also concludes after 6. Griffin we should if you order name whatever mean this can be accomplished whether of high reliability, high reliability or not. On the advantage the plan solves. Their evidence does not assume dual fueling their evidence that against truly effective cooperation marketing new regime based on cooperative human space. How this evidence assumes that stats voting structure which are evidence they conceded the evidence conceded we saw they say one weaponized because one thing to our evidence indicates mistrust will make weaponization of the stats because we don't trust the United States because the middle evidence we new dialogue to solve this mistrust they say that China has been placed out of Christ's interest today at first they conceded all the physical evidence proves that the yes will fail in the stats quo the plan to the can actually be China to and they have no interest in no it generates interest sufficiently that was context when they see or the results of decodes which they consider key they say frontier does not inspire yes rather to the case we have created creation momentum the things like temper space space travel the evidence deciding ask which is obviously biased on the evidence third party against us that it will fail in stats quo the SA plan is not FTS yes it conceded multitude of internal evidence to Germany is keeping things like technological superior military economic and psychological benefits I don't have to rehash them here because evidence does not answer specific key posts they say also talk over budget I'm not sure what the impact is but ours indicates will inevitably go over budget and if we go over budget at least it will be at least they're not giving it or they're not giving enough money which means it doesn't solve they say it's unsustainable first of all we solve the transition also we solve the reason it's unsustainable it says things like the dominant you can see the playing keepers and playing the technological superiority and it's also things like economy between things like text they say it sounds all yes they analyze all impact lenses in this debate through the lens of social science we control empirics the U.S. hegemony is made more obsolete our Barnett evidence says the statistical studies the presence of a major powers kept globalization stable solved structural violence and resulted in 99% drop in war really that's where the empirical we prove we control terminally using the status quo of the transports non-violence all social science field that's the most peaceful time in the last 12 2,000 years. And this is all attributed to democracy, which answers the neoliberals army, because it accounts for all the things that the neoliberals and says are high now. This is also offense against their alternative. Our evidence concludes that shock to the system, i.e., the systematic collapse, can disintegrate, or the disintegration of democracy can plunge the world into chaos and violence means only risk of turning out. The alternative hegemony causes transition towards hegemonic collapse, guarantees the creation of one power gap, narrowing the distance between countries, results in military confrontation. The U.S. falls at the rise and causes great power competition that escalates that sharing, and 2 U.S. slash out that's holding U.S. power to make the U.S. impoverished, adverse cause violence with other powers that's also descent turns the alpha. And Walton says that even if there's a shift to multipolar or inevitable, a stable hegemonic presence ensures that new era of cooperation is peaceful and not cause cooperation. They say there's no relation between war. Their evidence about multipolar. They say prefer evidence or lane evidence to hacking are the same thing since 1996. Never came to a version. He said you can see the terms also, which means we saw the impact on the and trying to critique on the value and see human. We are developing because we make space more accessible, so we meet their interpretation, not exclusive of other forms of exploration, development, and interpretation. Remote presence exploration, cluster night exploration, multiple terms, space, specific conflict, location exploration, in terms of human exploration, waffle absolute teleport, traffic, exploration, transfer, the Viking, or remote solar, no longer relevant, and space also limit claims, excludes satellite apps for our interpretation, AD over limit their interpretation, excludes core defensible apps like space weapons, SPS cycles, education, and fairness, ignores core sex, space policy, literally out the app, destroys education, or Gen 9 people are key capability for space civilization, already to go on, and our interpretation is not explode the top substantial and solid scabs, check reduce, and good should be good enough and competing interpretation, incentivized TR, instead of research, plus education, country use, is inevitable and not quantifiable. Also, we meet with a plan as mechanism for human spaceflight on 2D framework argument. The role of the ballot to simulate policy action is to test our frameworks, read the resolution more critical, and keep fair vintage ground other interpretation of self-serving and infinite and no link to the symbolic value does not deny life. The option continue to live should always be available. Calculate from a subjective point of view the question reduces simply the question whether we live in desire, live life is worth living. The intent we just wait happen we just what happened to once in the life circumstantial consideration of the question that would be quickly addressed with philosophical inquiry any description desire to live in any condition under which we should not be in such condition because to not follow the life value in those conditions for valid we prefer to live in time. We should not keep it all $5 would have no value, but we see per value of such life, the value of subsistence rate, or is essential to it, or the initial value in any life respective circumstance. And their gateway argument is ridiculous because they chose to read death impacts when they see proofs the voting negative is not authentic or does not set prerequisites. And their argument is wrong. How no, not our life accumulate value through satisfaction of our satisfactions and necessary conditions for life, and if you prove that recognition of the life itself is value, this conclusion would not reach from the arguments against madness of death. It is rational for death and regarded as an evil to be avoided category. This is ideas which the prospect of rationality is held as evil to be avoided rational and fear death because they death is rapid because the prospects may be considered death and bad for us if our deaths would prevent the satisfaction of category. It takes the kind of losing life to recognize the life of such value we can attach by distinct values to death while we are alive. We can attach it in the facility utility the prospects how to decide these values is a matter of judgment and reps don't come for 12 to 90 to 12 but it's more academics policy decision right academic institutions discourse more against false than they really are. Those academic charges all pursue putting action. There is a danger of fetish discourse with the conflict within the discourse of charges coming exhibit on the next critique permutation plan and all non-regards to the alternative. Also the enactment of an alternative by the judge is not an opportunity cost of federal action truth. They destroy rational decision-making skills. Firm the judge to the all the federal government to do the plan. It's also it's possible to lead to devaluation. There's no slippery slope to devaluation. They have to win the specific controlling to the impacts that it would and permanently plan to embrace the absolute otherness of every other and it's not an absolute moral imperative. Nuclear war affects almost every other. With turns to be permanently plan to embrace the all and extend our cooperation here is a net benefit. And life has intrinsic value. Preserve calculate finding a good to not exist and leaving life without evolution. All countries simply the experience of the experience in which we like the evolution of other size, sex, or rock paper scissors, but they are relevant in inquiry of a prior value market and a prior value problem. Their understanding of values in terms of humans. If you look at someone's brain and actually cannot tell who they are because there's a combination of things that are good and they go too far, which means permits keep it solved and the alternative doesn't solve the case even when it does the root cause doesn't solve the proximal cause case. It is having others and others not the root cause of World War II. Others through others is an import we should not overstate as a cause of conflict. There's war about religious difference, economic advantage, political power, land, and all of these things are causal explanation are rarely where causes are intertwined. The pull to truth otherness and a measure of values in terms of humans is inevitable embracing the otherness of every other does not produce change. No link the one I see does not measure things that value human terms. This is especially true of nuclear war because it destroys all things. And also the critique structurally cannot be a reason to vote negative. The very act of assigning values in the form of exclusion of the affirmative themes also means the permutation is better to the counterplan. Perm do both, also perm condition on the plan and do plan no matter the outcome, and counterplans allow the act or a voting issue. A act ground takes through the only act offense cuts focus on matter details of relation to destroys topic education, and independent act of solves gap makes outcomes impossible. The worst debate from the real proves counterplans with the normal solves gap plan solves, and the education there's not a deep enough literature base on condition to cover the year they trade off the topic education proving your SL base routine so one check perm to the counterplans not severity durability or question implementation of the plan's mandate, and NASA lifetime level 2 uses viable to the assessment the first within source space and fluctuate includes the NASA right during these studies are direct conscious that he's been telling Congress and approved his plan and roll back the condition not being met. Also, multiple conditional worlds or a voting issues. This choose to trying to piss offense could be cross the line, destroys half offense, winner, too late to catch up, they kill clash, no work, pulsing, person, creating challenge, creating counter turn, one, after self offense, they have no one, drilling to warming there, there's no reason why they spill over great power, a broader NASA thing, they can actually solve this or attack, there's no reason why the status quo does not solve, we calculate wood, climate change, and also no impact climate change, lumber, lumber spreading could be dismissed, it's equal accepted by effect of foreign given this use, states in amateur, they consider what happens 6 centuries from now, depends on the nation, 5 centuries from now, non-carbon limited tech will have it be, government warming 50 and until 2030, it will not be a challenge to civilization, no impact to warming, color, 727 NASA that showed the atmosphere is allowing more PDBA release, and then alarms, models predict, models assume emission cost humidity, that is showing that the emissions are not causing humidity, any data are consistent long-term data, any community around increased subjective NASA the peer review journal showed in the future discovery of the alarms, models, impacts.
We can take the second prep. Alright, stop that.
40 seconds use. So in case we should ignore our evidence from NASA because it's biased, but we shouldn't ignore your astronaut impact.
Wait, are you talking about the Griffin and Pace card?
No, you the Jinhua evidence that we read, you said citing NASA sources.
Yeah, when
so we should reject it. But you read evidence from NASA also, and you say that's legit. Explain the difference.
It literally just asserts we'll inevitably have space leadership. Only our evidence talks about the actual capabilities. Do you want me to answer the question?
Okay, yeah.
Only our evidence analyzes the actual capabilities and time frame of the SLS and the status quo versus a depot-based option. Your evidence just asserts that space leadership will be inevitable. Only our evidence.
Well, no, the evidence that I'm talking about comparatively to yours, right, is the I forget his name, but the guy who's like, we need space always, or else we'll be terrible forever. Like, how is that citing actual capabilities and resources? Like, he kind of has a shaky empirical example, right?
I mean, I disagree. I think we answered this in context when I see also we have a DoD consultant who says it's getting technological superiority and military stuff and all that.
So you have the DoD says it, but not NASA?
Dude, I think you're missing the point. Like, our have actually analyzed the capabilities through data, says status quo will fail, plan is a cheaper alternative that is essential to space leadership, and has a multiplicity of warrants, which you have not contested most of them, about why it solves the jeopardy.
Alright, that's fine. Reasons to reject the team, just checking for me.
There was condo, and then there was process counterfunds and solvency advocates.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, the first argument in T, because we're effects topical. Explain that, please.
It's not, okay, first of all, if that's effects topical, then every app on this topic would be effects topical.
Because you set up an infrastructure for us to do human missions, that means that you are an increase in human missions.
Right, if you build a rocket to go into space, that is effects topical.
Yeah, but then you actually
okay, your interpretation is like literally launch a human up without any kind of rocket, because that doesn't include any technological development that makes space more accessible.
Wait, what?
Because you do not allow technological development, making space more accessible, that proves that you launch humans up without any rockets, because the United States cannot send any, does not have the human-rated rockets right now. Which means every app.
This is not making sense.
The U.S. does not have any human-rated rockets right now. Okay, can we agree on this?
Sure.
Okay, which means that to make space more accessible for human capabilities, you have to build a new rocket. Right?
So, like, at very best, if you win that this is true, then the app is, like, still conditional, right?
Because
it's still
if you win this is true, then there are literally
rockets.
0 apps to meet your interpretation.
Wait. Okay, that's fine. We'll see about that. But okay. Sure. Decay. Life has intrinsic value.
Yeah.
Why and why should we preference?
It could be anything. Our evidence says it could be sex to rock, paper, scissors to ice cream to video games to debate. It really doesn't
All
matter.
right.
It's just
okay. So like there are nice things about life, but why should we like preface?
Why should
staying
we try
alive
and stop
over
bad
like
things from happening?
Not being racist, I guess.
If you want to make like a Taoism argument that we shouldn't stop bad things from happening, I'll answer that. And
Oh yeah, we tried. Let me.
let me check. It's just this next week.
Okay.
That's all it is.
What's the first argument on criticism? Is that an opportunity cost? Why is that?
It's not hard cost because the federal government can do the plan and
Okay.
the individual could still do the alt.
All the perms are perm non-comp, permutation, plan, and the alternative. Is that it?
No, well, are you talking about permutation on the K? Or
On the film K.
K.
Perm non-comp, perm, plan, and alt.
Yeah, and there was perm to plan embrace, the absolute otherness of every other, whatever the alt text was.
Okay.
And then perm, do the plan and embrace the alt, and extend the co-op scenario.
Oh, the cost scenario, right. Let's stop that. I have like 330.
I have 335 used.
You're right.
Here. So that puts you
You got me.
at
I'm thinking 544.
545 left.
545.
So the Earth is going to be death cult, the criticism, then the hegemony flow. Particularly near the bottom where there are going to be standing arguments about appearance, etc.
So just hedge defense?
Sort of.
Okay.
That's where the debate will be at.
Yeah.
But not quite.
Alright.
That's where you're.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Is that actually slightly
Feel this.
One second, probably actually, the pre-written extension of the cut-place curve for hedge. The pre-written extension of the cut-place curve for hedge. The hedge should be self-work. What? Do you want the pre-written extension of the hedge should be self-work?
No.
Okay. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't, but okay. I don't know why you
Just
would.
give it to me, whatever.
That was 10 seconds, I think.
I'm still counting it, I guess.
Oh.
Embarrassing. Stop that.
Classic, man.
Oh yeah. All right.
When you flip it, can you flip it like to the left, and if you don't read it, like, because there was a throwing issue last time.
I refuse. No, okay. Yeah, you got it. You just like want right here?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Like they did camera.
Yeah. Where is it?
Yep. All right, and we're good? All right. Take a look over the office goes, cuts what paper, go to the role of the battle arch formation at this round is that the sole question of the battle to advocate the better strategy that resists the commodification instrumentalization of the other too often. Our relation to the topic has been about the material strategy to undertake without asking the deeper question of their other relations to those actions in the form of supremacy and domination those pop up, even if they win, that their policy is good because of the specificity of the evidence and the magnitude of their scenarios of that logic continues marginalization of the others of political strategy within this pedagogical sphere of debate and beyond. You should still know negative who we are and the activity and who we are outside the activity become the same thing here. And I'm no longer separate involvement in debate formula, I'm as an individual language, not merely some transference over it's a 12 for meaning which forms real political conquest every the world. If others not react to the world, collective shares say if you're not able to change the world, but if change, or community if you fail to do that, but if you're not only real power, their plan focus arguments are essentially a sham. Not only are they meaning to continue to layer ethical interaction with another, but by asking you to focus on a more pressing threat, but an ethical focus to the one an ethical focus rather than plan focus to the one see is a more active form of firmer ground and negative ground. They only spend 5 seconds reading the plan text and 755 seconds making the ethical justifications for the world. We see they can still win the referendum, but arguments come much and a way that their pedagogy is the point of the world Joe. The two without evidence is evidence kind of the context, you know, not representations. Now that you just said there's a multitude, there's a material reality are claim like even if material reality exists, you should not necessarily prop up the exclusionary structures that exist because there's only a risk that when you go out of the world, when you go out of the world we're in, you make it a more exclusionary world. It's running. Criticism about ways extremes case first in attitude, refusing, left being, instead engaging in higher proportions of the world makes everything and everyone is staying reserved allows them to think through the impact of extinction. They conceded that out of the 2AC, which means it's try or die for the negative. The second is ethics. The only moral imperative is acceptance. The absolute other is rather we ourselves to the other because the other calls us to recognize them before we can even judge them. Our very basis of what makes us us is divided in opposition to what makes them them, which means that we should hear ourselves in that control. You should prioritize the invisible bodies that are necessarily excluded from the affirmative policy discussion because that is a suffering that is continual and ongoing. The time frame analysis and forms of probability is necessarily true, which means you should necessarily vote negative question. The first argument is the permutation. We have several links. So let's see. The first is all these links are arguments why the permutation is bad. It's form of separate intricacy. Otherwise, the terms are dissatisfied because there's a reason why the incorporation of 1C strategy is bad. The first link is their instrumentalization. The other, their focus on the use of orbital depots as nothing more than tools for consumption. Constructs them as expendable. This turns their hedge advantage because it means that they necessarily create scenarios to conflict with others. If it is true that China is going to take the moon, that would make hedge and that will, then that has only occurred under an umbrella of U.S. foreign policy, which necessitates competition. Right in the second is the militarization of the body. That's ToC. Enables masculinity to maintain the power of military the able-bodied dominant group use various forms of mounting privileged positions of one group's ideology relegated and inelected dominance maintain the partner's male identity to exist, including ideology of ableism of sexual body to the period by drawing lines between dominant force productivity people with body moving bodies that disappear. That is the foundation for invisible violence that spats off in 2010 people with disabilities face visible and angular system mirrors the brilliant opportunity, the inequality, and the evaluation of oneself based on the reward one receives by the sense of self-development as a personal and actually job fix the opportunities we are done for the bodies. The third link is the idea of the frontier, the notion that we just need to keep pushing the human limits beyond the atmosphere, design human finitude, and still the logic of mastery control. This would also necessarily turn this affirmative because the problem with status quo are structural inequalities. All restructuring means to make it worse. That's Rushman. And two for we cannot take someone's able to play leadership role, shifting role like progressive American allies, and the most formally trained leadership time over the time to go to economically more heavily on military Chinese influence nations of the economic expense. Also decline. It's essentially no because economic affairs description and two text exceptions not being used in 2000 the global realities of the dollar and the Chinese may be multi-currency for 2015 United States will have two bots like again nonetheless more level playing field. The next argument is the question of the multiple words. If we win our framework argument, this argument is not essential because who you are in the activity and who you are outside the activity are the same, which means there is no hypocritical state rate prevented a methodology. You should not allow them to say that because that's separate. The truth on the underground, otherwise they would just say that hegemony is bad. Should we see the slippery slope argument? I think this argument goes more in your direction because you I think they assume that there's a slippery slope that China, if they were to take the moon, etc., that would be the slippery slope to destruction of U.S. hegemony. We have a risk that due to the invisibility, the masking over the bodies that are already, the masking over the bodies that have already been excluded and become invisible. They make the argument that they make the argument. The nuclear war is bad. You conceded. Humans do not come first because all matter is equal. Any attempt to check out value and describing humans as a criteria for significant understanding is arbitrary and leads to more exclusion, making relative possible as trying theory are too many beings that fall through the cracks of your interpretation of what constitutes a person of value. People in comas, necessarily individuals with health conditions that live in response to action. Everything is an ontological value, regardless of human interpretation. Version 92, which is better thing with living organisms, they're not his, and should be constituted with the ecological took two sets of atoms there, and most intrinsically value are expressed energy and inherent atoms two, and that's intrinsically value towards itself, the positive fluctuate energy, actual entities are self-organized, different exist, the actual organization that can do each entity, should be now based on the expression self-interest, rights, nature, significance of each case and events of history, the argument, now that's your argument, so the plan do the alternative and plan, the alternative, I've already done the link analysis here, there's no for not about a part of the alternative in the context, we have rejection of the 1AC alternative is an act of hospitality to the after others, every other within means in the debate space, it is recognition that the beings that become invisible, you should open your eyes, that's so too, and try to see seek them out rather than propping up systems of exclusion that have made those lives invisible for the place. Although we have potential for artist level, we do not need to win this round. We can still win. The evidence in the so much to it, not bad. It's reasonable to get to make the argument. That life's unnecessary value. I'm pretty sure this card is a negative card. This card is a negative card because it says that we can only understand the value of life by living through the notions of finitude, which the affirmative is not about. Their idea of hegemony protecting oneself forever and not acknowledging the fact that life is finite, which means alternative would necessarily be a better choice to argue to make the argument that life has ontological value. Yes, you are right, but other beings have ontological value and significance. Well, you should not privilege human lives or other lives that should make the alternatives not solve the case. I think it solves the approximate culture scenarios. It would lead to cooperation. The only scenario where space weapons where people view us as attacking them and therefore it means the ethics of the ways we test people to solve it. Also, it will make it so there's no great power war argument. Even if they win, that China's going to take the moon. If you vote, or the alternative itself, there are apolarity and backlash arguments because it means that you endorse because you're responsibility. You endorse a strategy of surrender rather than aggression. They make no self-judgment arguments about they say no link to they don't value, and you ensure all the rest of the arguments that voted by the next term is a voting negative is a form of exclusion. You already advocated a form of exclusion in practice and debate, which means necessarily you don't have to say that you are bad. We're just saying the pedagogy that you were the pedagogy and mental scholarship that you're endorsing are bad. Yeah, that's fine. Hegemony. Here we go. I've been somewhat embarrassing acrostics when they went on NOAA on the question of irrelevance, but I thought why evidence is much better, and the reason why you should necessarily reject their authors. They're all the neoconservative hacks that actually bounce levels are necessary respect. There's nothing intrinsic about U.S. foreign policy that makes one all they make the argument, and violence is necessarily increasing. That's our draw evidence. It takes the fact that it's actually a neoconservative tool which they concede an epistemological indict of their authors of their desire to profit the current system, which means even if you default to their notions of empirical examples, you should even Paul, empirical examples, we call their question the very validity of those empirical examples. No news, one-error arguments. Also, even if the United States should recede from the world sphere, that does not mean that there'll be apolarity. Other actors, Phil and Watson, and the Guild of Americans will make a international order that change the door itself, like in China, and your systems to play, and while Watson they expect, and our national rules likely to try to place the national system has brought us to, that has brought it to sort of economic although Obama now means it's key, that's Quinn, and a little bit adverse temperatures not will soon majority decline, and it's ready to try to use resources to soothe the loss of the power. The alternative involves the escalation of the conflict or scenarios likely of the United States actions since hegemony as perspective election then going down the direction leaders to minimize conflict as the president. It seems to force just saw the president who just not that the bill it's fine and Pinker strong Flint will something to make the kids females of loss. He covers the Pinker deals with percentages of population because he deals with percentages of the species. It's absolutely defines explains the overpopulation of the species because to be critical when it's been done the done red population, which is a sort of Damocles hanging over the planet. Yeah.
Alright, on hedge, that Obama's key, what statement do you think Obama has made that he's willing to abandon hegemony?
The argument says that Obama has pushed toward policies to abandon hegemony, like the reason that...
Like what?
So like...
He's increased military presence in Asia, quoted Kagan in his State of the Union address. Like,
he did, because everyone quotes Kagan in their State of the Union addresses, first off. And second off, like, we are doing way more multilateral policies. The fact that our...
Okay, multilateral...
So, for example, the approach to space is a radical departure from Bush's. You probably agree with that.
Multilateralism. Do you have any evidence he's abandoning unipolarity for multipolarity, which is different from multilateralism?
No, multilateralism is the first steps towards forms of multipolarity.
They're hugely different. Okay.
You're right, but it does set the stage, which is why U.S. pull out now, because it's already setting up frameworks of cooperation.
Thank you.
Those
which invisible bodies
exist.
does the ath like obscure or
which
hide?
Militarized bodies?
Which invisible bodies?
So one are the invisible bodies of the other that's been constructed as a tool, and specifically, forget the evidence we just read, but also disabled bodies specifically.
Okay, yeah. How do we hide like disabled bodies and like people with COVID?
That card is very good. It says that the way that militarism, which is the backdrop of hegemony, operates is it functions on the idea of a stable individual that is able to be militarized, i.e. the perfect soldier, etc. Our evidence says that that is combined with
what is the United States
better.
trying to do to make the entire population a perfect soldier?
What?
What is the United States trying to do that makes the entire population
so like,
a perfect
for example,
soldier?
like links off the one you see. So like, for example, when your Schmidt evidence says that we need a strategy of dominance in space.
Yeah, why does that require literally the entire population be perfect soldiers, including people with comas? It just seems like an unreasonable internal link.
Right, that's exactly why it's bad, right? Because it assumes that people should necessarily fit a certain model.
Right? I'm saying what U.S. policy says everyone has to fit that model.
The idea of this soldier,
okay, you're not answering me. How would like nuclear? How would nuclear war? Yeah, actually, what is the impact, by the way, to like hiding these invisible bodies?
It means that, well, one is it allows us to use them as instruments and tools, which is a precondition for us to do bombs on them because they become invisible. The second,
okay, so what's the impact of that though? Like violence against people with invisible bodies?
Yes,
Okay,
structural violence, but also
right, structural
there's an
violence.
ethical impact.
Ethics, okay. Anything else? Ethics and structural violence?
Ethics, structural violence, there's also an extinction impact, which you can say that.
Okay, why is it an extinction impact?
Because the terminal logic of that logic is that when certain populations become invisible to be excluded,
Right.
it justifies the mobilization of populations. For
Okay,
war, right?
do you agree people are excluded now?
Yes,
Why hasn't that resulted in nuclear war? Why hasn't that logic caused nuclear war?
because why hasn't it?
Yeah, you said the
Why has
logic
it
of
caused
exclusion.
war?
Like
The idea
yeah.
that it's caused war, right? The idea that
What war like has happened because of like exclusion of people with disabilities?
Okay, you're right. I don't know if a war about the
You just said it caused war. Can you name me a single war?
A wars that's based off the instrumentalization of the other, Iraq, Afghanistan.
All right, and that has everything to do
Vietnam.
with like ignoring people with disabilities. That's why we really invaded Iraq.
You are first off, slow down because you're starting to get a little offensive. But more importantly, our argument
I
is
think
that
your arguments are way more offensive than mine.
Our argument is that there are certain
Did we kill
individual
millions of Iraqis? That's just like,
certain individual populations.
Do you have that?
One second, Brad.
also, just to be clear, I was not saying we did not kill millions of Iraqis. I stopped mid-sentence.
Okay.
It would have been really awkward.
Couldn't find it.
You look at six. Let me do that.
Where is she?
Here, just read the phone. This one good. Are you done? Okay, stop that. The use.
You had 434. All right, so it's the top of the hedge flow in the cover.
There you go. Head fuck out, man. You got my headphones because you're over there.
Or is this yours?
Ready?
Their internal evidence on the cooperation advantage so that it's kind of put them in a double on all the reasons why space war is coming out with something, reasons why they're not going to be able to overcome all their evidence says literally is that other countries will be able to use the depots. There's still other issues that will be able to swallow over. Hitchens evidence is very good. The question we don't have the international frameworks in order to be able to actually stop this from harassment. They also concede the space war never escalated because countries don't want to take out their own satellites, which means that there's absolutely no internal link to this war. But now China was the moon argument. They mishandled this. They just say that the he's trying to move with this an implicit delay comment on do the one you see that they are conceding once China gets in with it will necessarily boost their space program to get there. It doesn't matter what order the people get to the moon. It's fundamentally open because we'd still be able to increase our space program to the point where we'd be able to access the things like the educational, the technological, the economic spillover, and the international perception that they'd be able to have. Even if China and the U.S. are both space racing, the U.S. was space racing with Russia, and it's still able to have that kind of spillover. But they also concede, and they don't lead to any kind of education spillover or any kind of inspiration internationally. We have empirical evidence that when the U.S. started stopped expanding west, they stopped making games. In hegemony. Counterplan. Counterplan always turns the case first. Warming always on magnitude wars will never escalate because rational actors will check them back. But warming is a unique impact because every reason second is time frame there's an invisible brain and it's coming out behind the counterplan's key to be able to solve each review the debate through offense defense. It's most check calculus for evaluating risk 1% risk benefits reason but they also conceding that the scientific integrity policy is key to NASA's credibility, which means that it's necessarily key in order to be able to solve their space their perception-based hegemony arguments and why am I? Group permutation do with and live permutation. First of all, having framework is not enough. Legitimate limitations. Key graph 3.3. Implication of these policies will promise a new level of government accountability, will ensure scientific integrity, and agencies recognizing malicious just support its publication, while some agencies, some of the necessary ingredients are not ready to put it up and apply, and two is leaks everywhere, April 3, officers will share the blame for massive amounts of information revealed through WikiLeaks, some the Obama administration shall ensure when it comes to national security of a private cost, counts of over a million documents of 3 elements, the national policy, partial compliance, insufficient full compliance and review, necessary to survival of the scientific integrity policy, that's the space travel evidence, and that's the peer evidence, and 4, the permutation severance of severance of the immunity and certain planet, that's a voting issue, makes the moving target less than despite negative round, and collaboration is also intrinsic because it adds the time frame component of the review, so voting issue because it allows them to spike all of distance, they see theory, the counter-information negative can only run process kind of so the topical solvency advocate solves offense versus offense, one debating scientific progress, policy is key, education brutally aid. Debate for concerns about scientific integrity government play an important role. Personal science appreciate the argument for researchers' ability to respond to solutions to problems. Knowledge the public holds dear. Research discussing context of assessing essential points will help science about image first. Discussion around minds for research overblown for long-term sustainable sense of action by itself openly and how to escape its science debate. Useful and fun to discuss benefit analysis to make use of a portable skill. We think we're doing when they come on against the plan. It's key to read the kill 90% of education on 180. And also, policy choice about very little the mechanism for implementing choice of probably understood. Percent the workers of government elections, 71 preferred alternative spend 10%, 89% the Roman implementation force negative ground process commons, core negative ground, especially the ToC key to check ask, structural advantage of first law speech and infinite press and new apps, and 5 legal entry in there are focus arguments forces them. No threat for which parties they can best leverage solvency evidence 6. We lead better plan ready force them to research apps with time from a certain key warrants and 7. We increase their ground they can impact and net benefit read distance the compliment and 8 discussing the scientific integrity policy simulate scientific discussion group 11:30. OSC policy has been coordinated scientific integrity across the government, the head of scientific integrity, UCS, and says, boosting all government research for the very fact that they can be conversations are fundamentally good. Actually, Griffin literature checks and progression arguments, find a number of counterpoint advocates, conversation proofs are just wise, when they are, this proofs, it's like there's no bright line for what constitutes a solvency, but this kind of doesn't still, they can just read, say no or delay arguments. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, the basic implementation of the counterplaying piece of reviews of my list for amendments to plan that's the space travel and the firm. Service on means uncertainty for the planning definition proves the topical voting issue should means immediate summer 94. The word should denote the law as immediate effective as opposed to single result means comes from a firm decision voting issue dictionary no date. Solve come from a firm decision about we conditional is good. Interpretations arbitrarily come on the law is move the goalpost and counter interpretation repeated. We win the app and makes it possible the app. It's a reason to vote out against this theory should be the only vote in the most extreme case we defend. 30 conditions condos get a 9 flex and again. Similar to funded for arbitrarily change one AC protects negative ground. Function checks as well, so if he means absolute limits are already going to be hard to beat as good. More pressure plus on the 2AC, more likely they're coming out. Should you just say we learn during their claims. Grant that way so we will learn more on how to spark interest path. Progress active engagement and in-depth education is key to research skills and incentivizing negative. Research multiple structures throughout the one way to learn more things. Rather exhaustive skill shopping and perpetrator to be say that because one second night, they don't get to advocate them at the times and catch you or devil. We just find an infinite number. Please announce what I don't know what the impact is of the PO would be able to somebody else for they say that permanent plan rollback there's a time frame differential, but also this enable to solve the perception arguments. They say that it was spill over. It's just that especially we be able to change policymakers are having actually really good. It should also spill over that we kind of want to be able to solve because we'll be able to solve the scientific progress for all the gosh evidence for good. There's an impact of warming as well as for particular evidence. We have scientific consensus inclusive in the gosh evidence.
You have 731.
Yeah, I do. I believe. There's this one. Document 3.
Actually,
Yeah.
okay.
This might break me. case, it'll be 1 in R, then 2 in C, because it's like the 1 in R started at the top of the counter plan. Death cult in front.
What's it called?
Document 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Start with helpful. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Still checking.
What was you said an order within the
Well, it was 1 in R, then 2 in C, because the 1 in R at the top of the 2 in C,
down.
and then, yeah.
Here.
Kind of stuff computers, like just one more time.
Of course, it would be the case with like the cooperation stuff, the 100, then the hedge impact, then the counter plan, death cult, intro. Anybody not ready?
No, we're good.
Okay.
Accidental complex inevitable Michelin system will cause explosion. Biological weapons will be used to lead to extinction, which is considered RNC. Then return like capable to that is the plans only for physical cooperation. There's a tendency for cooperation. There's a code of conduct besides the national state policy, etc. But there's not the actual tangible solution because the country can't participate in use space life programs. Our middle is open to Chinese and Russian space programs. There's more open sharing of information. Which also turns the open to southern arguments on the critique. Now they say there's a delay. The delay kind of the one to see evidence says that people will still try to use the SLS, which we see if they're inspired to go to space. They will use the SLS, which is inefficient and will fail, which will never get to the moon. And proves the plans the only thing for solving these no inspiration. Yes, we do. We still STEM education, the perspective system, empirical improvement, that causes technology, environmental, educational momentum now. The hedge argument, the epistemology systems are relevant. You can't just say that our epistemology is better without writing a counter epistemology is better. And rooted in empirics, because the role, how to decide impact evidence based on empirical, more evidence that the more evidence is all empirical. Science proven for the democracy, and it shows the biggest controlling towards still robust evidence has a quote with literature that has 12,000 years of history, and statistics proves that warfare and violence has been declining. There's evidence there's another kind of international violence and all, or warfare, and also all these factors that drove citing have been getting better structurally, which is the Oregon evidence democracy in terms of because democracy less for solving the environment instead of solves better living conditions for all. Members of society also economic growth makes it much more rational. Also makes also proves that hegemony is crucial in relation to globalization democracy, and turns all these arguments our authors relevant set to prop the system they're writing at various universities. There's no evidence about that. The counter plan, they did not extend a warming impact credible to warming the lower to death signals since he's not qualified. They exaggerated 400 times. Taylor says NASA satellites prove that there's no sort of warming, which is the consensus actually goes negative on the impact level. Question of all alternatives. Also, the lie permutation of the lie means that we go with the mindset of when the counter plan is it goes over to change their mind later. It's not the time for permutation because the element of time frame is added implicitly in the counter plan when they change their mind and proves it's not intrinsic, and also solves their leaks argument. They need to solve something against the voting issue, and it has to be about the plan. It's original literature-based competition. It's predictable. Cause better education because they prove there are evidences in the literature. There are element evidence in the cars about space education being important. Are reasons why you have to ignore something because they're forced them to be indifferent on the question of the order is not new at all. You should have predicted no multiplication rules or voting each other because numerous stuff to the negative. If they stand by the backtrack is the only appropriate remedies for rejecting the team. They choose was the worst page. They make the choosing possible because they can be used against the sound of the world. The one you have to catch and TA and D arguments about the choosing excuse inevitable only when the choosing debate multiple worlds. Hard debate is okay to accept the negative with more debates multiple worlds overcompensate for F-minus thankless arbitrary. Doesn't seem like somebody who see multiple worlds creating incentive based on does discussion plus false comparison and education deep based force choosing strategic evaluation internal condition goes neg strategic thinking and research any policy appears best it's uncovered. Multiple make the breadth of education impossible, but the education is only valuable if you have infinite or specific proposal they publication that check there and also one evidence cells are often any other interpretation does have infinite negative skills logical decision making. They did not make a counter interpretation in the 1 hour, which means that he should have a very low threshold for wording from the story. Now the death called our interpretation the judgment the policy involved is dependent on the plan or versus schedule or equipment policy option. This is best threshold is predictability on them to any other change the role about like this the quantification of the other could be anything arbitrary another conditional clear bright line between them, which makes it impossible to predict these two worst education and worst debates over the question there. Our argument about marginalization is first of all when he says I cannot separate myself from the debate community is in the context of this person's specific life, not in the context of nor to say how to make sure we should operate. Also here's evidence that we can change the government covers my citizen debate obligation debate was going to do the absence of this motivation argument is also portion of political power cooperative is from requiring the power to go the individual playing with the government interaction effects is making it agreement with the piece of political out there the same other making last start doing build like power until the we can do it all playing places with activists and we be seeing cause power there and short evidence includes the consequences matter and that the ethical obligation is not overriding internal line when the case of money ask whether people made it low lose them because not data available but the knowledge that also not simply we must and the third survey that considering all the other third men the cost of both the hospital extended in our hospital welcome to those where welcome to the senior figure the intelligence would be more justified they truly from the ethical possibility they had truly made the decision. They say that 211 is not applicable. It says materiality shapes for our state representation, which means that if we, when the plan itself is good and it solves back the impacts to the representation, which hegemony solves, hegemony solves the they try to put K proper. They say. They don't change other countries' minds, which means they amorphous inevitable. They don't stop being polar because because last by the United States is inevitable. The more emphasis they have no correlation between their root cause arguments in war because the only robust correlation in the war is in terms of democracy. The permutation due to the plan on non-restrictive part of the alternative is not separate. The result of link arguments because it also link arguments because the alternative solves 100% of the modification. The permutation would solve 90%, which is enough to solve the terminal impact arguments. So they've dropped the judge permutation and the judge to the plan and the judge to the alternative federal government to the plan, which solves all their other arguments as key to opportunity cost decision making, which is a sense then solve also the alternatives to paralysis. We can't ever use anything, we can't ever do anything. It's because another plan solves the issue, that's the limit steps with not connected to the specific internal links. They say that they read this fine-tuned, there's a distinction between death, they say fine-tuned, there's a distinction between death and extinction. Extinction is intrinsically bad because the concept says life is intrinsic value. That's not the same as individual death.
You have 434.
Okay.
What's that? From Tinsy running on. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Where's the good one? How do you find it? Order's going to be the K decibel counterpoint. Right.
It's like I've lost my.
That's fine. We lose everything, so I understand the feeling.
Okay.
Flows not good. Are you good?
Yep.
Alright. Everyone ready?
The 1AR massive and recovered this flow, which means it's easy negative at first. The advantage terminal vector, the criticism of the extinction for our intro habits, the logic of devaluation, views everything as same result the mobilization of populations for section 4, which means all the inactivated essentially negative thing is a lot. But second, they've conceded you look to invisible bodies before you look at terminal extinction scenarios because we are ethically obligated to the other ideas like militarism are necessary. I believe they conceded. Or Sadowski evidence that is the logic of militarism of pretending a Gemini relies on the notion of the crippled body, which is to be excluded. So they conceded impact as per our Petrod evidence, which you can vote negative. They allow for the structural violence, which certain populations are excluded from the fiction. There was a framing argument made that you should look at these before they have not answered that formula question, which means do not do look in the third. They conceded all of the turn case analysis. They lose. They conceded the frontier mentality to expansion, the league expansion, and overstretch. You read evidence in the context of the United States is overstretched. And Afghanistan, they allow for deep space exploration. They push empire to its logical limits. Let's go back to the second. They concede the extrapolation of March evidence in the context of China, how their vision of China's necessitates the competition of relation to the other informs the competition, which means they cause the same collapse they talk about. More importantly, they concede the framing issue that the collapse of hegemonies doesn't even matter that much. Our quit evidence sets the stage that Obama is necessarily unique as well as our wants evidence that the structures that hegemony has already set up does not need America anymore. The world is already moving to multipolarity. Not an answer to this argument means there is literally zero risk of the the collapse of civil society. Only risk of the alternative strategy, which is embracement and openness to the other, to recognize the voices and the voices that have been pushed to the sidelines, that have been denied from modernity, are necessarily brought to the forefront where we see the structural violence that's occurring and allows you to make a political step and make the two permutations. They have not answered any of the linked debate, which is why you should not do the work for them. No reason why it is able to come. We have a specific indict of the militarism of the 1AC. Any single risk of these dissents is the reason to vote negative, because they still push certain populations to the invisible belts, conceded a link to the planetics itself. The idea that space depots are only important so far as their instrumental value to us is the exact criticism Mark Short is talking about, because it assumes the world is just some obvious, the world is some oyster for us to necessarily explore. More importantly, death is not an impact. They conceded in Mark Short said everything is of ontological value. They are right in saying that life has a value, but other beings also have a value, which means that the displacement of the value of life necessarily does not matter in the context of the intentionality framing this eternal defense on the questions. We are the only ones reading evidence on evidence question. Also, Kuchowski evidence is necessarily wrong. This in the context of finitude, which is a reason to vote negative. Their two birds are to have the judge of the plan. If we win, the judge of the plan, and that's right. If we win the frame debate or some defense on that, that's a reason why you gotta get the religious, because the things that we do in the debate and methodologies we endorse when we come out of the debate. Now, the death count debate first is the framework debate. First, we are the best form of education necessarily because they have already sidestepped the possibilities of political relevance within the debate. Bjork evidence explicit that the words we use in debate and the framing that we use change the way that we always treat people. We always make nuclear war, so necessarily when we leave the debate round, we are more threat-minded person. Our argument is consistent with most of the one you see. It's also explained the reason why the discourses we use in debate actually do matter, which is why the educational pedagogy of the one you see is good. They can even have the middle ground. They can have their plan, but our argument is mostly and external to that is the reason why their education is necessarily bad. They are going ham on the predictability argument. They've conceded the focus argument of 7 minutes and 55 seconds of the one you see in the context of the ethical strategy. Not only 5 seconds are in the context of the plan text, which means we have a better internal link to negative and affirmative predictability because they chose the format, the ethical relevance, the mode apparatus in which they decide to advocate for the resolution through an ethical lens, which means we necessarily subsume their evidence or cornerstone evidence is good, but it's not good enough. In the context of co-option, debate can be used as a space for activism, and even if it shouldn't be used as a space for activism, we should not make arguments necessarily that make us numbed to the structural violence that's occurring in the real world. True evidence is also wrong. He does say consequences matter, but consequences under the lens of an infinite ethics to others, in which case nothing really matters. Because nothing matters is the intentionality. If we win this framework, it's necessary reason why we were around the counter plan, not going farther, concede to burn. It's just calculation. Also on the truth element, its reputation do matter. All arguments in the split, you should refer the specificity of our links then, rather than their generic argument that it does. Matter not going for the counter plan, but conditionality is good. They must have missed the counterprediction, the one in our we conceded reasonability on the T flow, which means that we do not need to necessarily wait. We have two conditions they do not have. So get me right ahead. That kind of good. First, it's key to research skill. They left a negative strategy without conditionality. People like Lyle Stewart would only read process counterplans, and only in the world or they able to read criticisms when they're allowed to expand their horizons and lead to new argumentative forms of flexibility, which is why you kept negative around the forefront because they are already more well checked out and research on the internal links of the word. See, there's only a risk that we need to a better form of education. There are arguments about strategies Q are not sorry. They can see the argument for an infinite number of T violations essentially skew their time. They might be right that it's a little bit quantitatively different, but it's not quantitatively different enough to vote us against us throughout all this skew and talk about all the deltas, etc. Linked to their counter prediction. You could read the cap K and E counter said that's one conditional rule, which proves that this is why that the argument counter prediction is just as good as theirs.
4. Do you remember which one was?
418.
It's, I didn't get this, sorry. Maybe the K and then 3. Is anybody not ready?
We will win this debate because hegemony outweighs in terms of degree. Even if you agree with the two in R about our relationship with the other, that's inevitable in the status quo. Because the U.S. has conducted countries like China, Russia, and Iran as a threat. Goldstein says this causes violent lash out as power declines, which is conceded war coming on the two in R, which is the case towards K. Because you know what would be good for an open relationship with the other? Invading Iran. 9/11 when it appears when the U.S. Power goes down when you do things like lash out and invade countries like Iraq and Afghanistan, which are internal turns all of their offensive debate. The only question you need to ask at the end of the debate is if the international system less likely to have genocide and war if absence of hegemony, statistical evidence on conflict answers the question and says yes. They concede all the statistics and empirical analysis and arguments. He just asserts that transition multilateral standard concede all the lash out impacts also or evidence that against the hegemony is going to maintain a stable transition. If your response to the other is actually in that there's no way that allowing nuclear war to happen would be an ethical thing. View the impact level on ethics through the lens of billions dying from radiation poisoning versus militarism that the neg just assert causes mass genocide. They have no internal explanation about how the plan actually causes war or who we would actually invade or who we commit genocide against, which means you have to have them very high thresholds because they don't have any specific scenarios or explanation about why the plan actually causes these things. The neg has read some evidence in adding all of our studies but could not come up with a single study of their own about how the world works. We don't know how gravity works in a quantum mechanical sense, but we don't want to jump off the building because it will kill you. Negative evidence comes from people who are totally unqualified to discuss any of these issues. They have cultural degrees in English, but only our evidence comes from professors who have degrees in things like international policy. You have to differentiate this between what debater thinks sounds cool was actually true in the world of use hegemony. Allows you to deal with things like rogue leaders who are declaring war and genocide against their own people as per Pinker and Ovid evidence, which means we internally turn all of the response to the other. At the end of the debate, all of its ethics arguments, the internal impact of those things is genocide or relationship to the other, which means we actually internally better internally to people, stopping people do things like genocide means we internally turn all of the impacts of the ethics on line violence, the logical evaluation causing extinction, but there is no impact. Also, hegemony solved you can see there are more evidence. There's an infinite number of root causes. The only way we can approximate oneself that is deterrence. Here, our evidence is the only one rooted in 2,000 years of empirical evidence. He says, look at invisible bodies first, but even if you look at invisible bodies first, even if you look at invisible bodies first, we internally turn this into the status quo. There's no way that nuclear war benefit people in comments. They have no explanation why the plan actually makes things worse than the status quo, or how the alternative actually results in any of these questions. He says hegemony relies on the notion of a crippled body. I'm not really sure how we think so. We paper over people with disabilities, or why we make that worse. He says the critique is the case, but I'm not sure why any of the arguments he went for in this part of the debate, it makes him think it actually turns against. He just says we expanded the frontier, we impact turn that. Expanding the frontier space of hegemony, which means he says our vision trying to cause competition. First of all, you can see that we have evidence of cause effective international cooperation with China, which means we turn the openness ethic to the other. You can see the one framing issue that if we win the internal cooperation, which he's conceded to it means we create a more open relationship to the other, which also turns all the ethics arguments. An argument about why competition with China would escalate. All of our specific evidence about deterrence proves that it would not escalate. Even if there's some marginal impact through things like genocide or small-scale war, nuclear war still outweighs that. He has no impact. That is a question. You can't just let him assert that structural violence somehow escalates to extinction without any explanation or scenario about how that actually happens. He says that we ignore voices. That was answered. But he says I'm not going to go for the permutation. He says there's no impact to death. Yes, there is an impact to death. All of the impacts predicated on ethics, our relationship to the other, how we ignore them, and how they're dying in the status quo. We also implicitly answer this when we read things like the consequentials today, which I'll get to on the other float. He said, finding this reason to vote negative notes others. You can see the distinction between extinction and death, which means that because we prevent extinction, we allow individuals to have death and however they want to know about it. And from constructive, we said that life is predicated on finitude. There's just not it's not a coherent argument on the judge permutation. We're not going to go for that. We don't have time. Framework. Appreciate it.
Okay. Well, this is on the consequence.
Yeah, this is framework and consequentialism. The winner and shown evidence that we read proves the plan over ethical obligations. You should evaluate consequences based on the plan as a prerequisite to the alternative. We'll explain the concept of the Introna card. In Introna's example of whether it's ethical to disassemble an android is not human in order to learn things from the android's brain. Featured in Star Trek episode about the cyborg named Data, the court decided not to disassemble it even though it's not human. This is the example of why unconditional hospitality to the other. However, Introna at the bottom of the article concludes that third parties who would have been helped by Data's assembly were not at the negotiation, whose voices were not heard, might have justified the Data system. This proves that the real just ethical obligation is a consequentious one and not a just proven by them saying we should take into account all people who are invisible, and this has that proves you have to maximize all people's lives to affirm equality. Only voting act and truly confront ethics on hospitality because the voting neg sense all the thirds die in a nuclear war if we win. There's the hedging tax, which he's not extending very good. Impact defense. He said it's a question of how we methodology hegemony. We impact turn. Leaving the methodology, if we win, hegemony is good. That proves reinforce hegemony. The status quo, which means we have impact turn. All of your framework. He says plan focus, bad plan focus. You have to even if you win system link to the plan, that means you still have to evaluate it over this nebulous methodology claims are accomplishment evidence in the case we need to engage with the levers of power and understand how the government works. It's an independent education, which turns all of the states to education.
It takes out all solvency.
What?
It
also takes out all solvency because it proves that all we co-opted the explanation about how all these people like Bachman on board, which was all the reasons why the permutation fails and the links and the status quo, the links co-opted proves that people like Bachman and the GOP would preclude alternative solvency, which means you have to call it after try or die unhedged.
As soon as the debaters come back, they'll announce. The paint nice. I made it to the ToC Teach site. Way to go, girl. Did you realize that?
Yes, I did. I was very uncomfortable.
That's too bad, because Odie said he picked Tom.
Oh.
He said he would pick Tom.
It was fine. I just didn't like this. Like.
Really?
Yeah. This is the worst time for it to disappear. We actually had so much time before this.
No, I haven't.
Dustin, it's a cross combo. Cross with the
I was just, yes. Sorry.
Our place.
I don't know.
There were still a bunch left.
Dude, I have like this weekend.
Oh, no, I am not. Sit down, that's good. Thank you. We got everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a 3-0 decision for the affirmative of StMarx. This is all kind of a mess. I go. You want me to start? I found that this debate took a lot longer to decide than I had hoped because I thought that there was a lack of explanation of a lot of the key evidence in the debate. There was actually not many references to pieces of evidence in the last two speeches, and so it made it so that I was having to go back and figure out, okay, what piece of evidence is tied to this argument and whatnot. And I ultimately felt like on the, I had a much harder time getting my mind around some of the impacts that the negative was making. So starting with, I guess, the death cult argument, I had a hard time. I think that in the 2NR, you are very defensive in extending this argument in the debate, and I don't even understand the primary function of it. I think you're focusing more on what I'm not supposed to evaluate on their side and less on what I'm supposed to evaluate on your side on that flow. I think as its primary function within the debate, I guess, just taking a step back from this, is less than clear to me in the 2NR. And I could make some suppositions about how you think it functions within the debate, but I found it very hard to understand for the 2NR, which made that, whereas on the other side, on the AF side, I think that I understand their consequentialism, especially this argument about the internal evidence that you read that says that it should come for the alternative. That argument is just much more easy for me to grasp when I get to that evaluation. And I think that if I can sum it up this way, I think they ultimately are able to insert some of their 2AR consequentialist analysis through that piece of evidence. And I think that you needed to have a better on-point answer to that argument. I also don't think that in terms of the actual hedge impacts that you extend enough of your defense on the hedge arguments. I also don't think that your cards are not extraordinarily, well, they're pretty short, not very well warranted. So what you do have, I only actually have you extending on my flow the one particular piece of evidence that says sort of that the U.S., the characteristics of the United States will be retained by the multipolar order. And I don't think that evidence is very well warranted at all, and I don't really have you extending much of the warrant. I think that sets them up to be in a pretty good place if they get to access some of their, of the AF and the consequences of the AF. I don't think you have enough defense to be able to win the debate. I also think that they're winning, well, I don't have and again, there were just places in the debate where part of this may also have been that people didn't go, like the hedge flow got bound up in other parts of the flow, and so perhaps I just missed your answer to this argument, but I have the 1AR making an argument that accesses your ethic about this co-op, that if they win, that they have any solvency for cooperation, that means that they access the ethic argument, and I don't have an answer to that. per se in the 2NR. Yeah, I can say some other things, but mainly I felt like you were sort of presupposing that I understood the function of arguments in the debate more than I did, and I think that sort of the default mindset of most judges is more, that I just inherently or intrinsically understand their arguments a little bit better. I think that, I've judged you a bunch of times, and I think that in other debates I've seen you be much clearer on the implications of your arguments that are sometimes a little tricky. And I just think that that was fundamentally lacking in this debate, particularly in the 2NR, which I think set you up to be sort of vulnerable to the 2AR that happened. So I'll let the other judges speak.
All right. I think that there's too much of a disconnect in the impact versus the link arguments. You're making these kind of internal impact framing arguments, but I think that at the end of it, you need to do something with either the alternative in terms of resolving things like inevitability, flash arguments, or you need to do something more with the intentionality ethics argument. And I just don't think that there is enough with this in the 2NR. I think you need to do more on why, I shouldn't evaluate the final determination of these things. These kind of inevitability arguments, if they're whether the inevitability of transition wars, things like that, if hegemony itself is a bad thing. And I think that the 2NR makes the wrong decision. You should have gone for the K, definitely, but the Giroux, the kind of epistemology hegemony arguments on case. I think that is where the focus of the 2NR should have been, because I thought the 2NC was very good on these arguments, and I think that you spend the focus of the 2NR is too much on kind of the, being in trauma stuff, when in reality I think you are doing a pretty good job on just the nature of the way in which this invisible violence that these indicts of the way in which they come to their studies of how violence is going down. I think that the AF reads a ton of cards on this, but I think that coming out of the 1AR, you are just out debating them, not explaining them on these arguments. I think that is where the focus should have been, instead of kind of the like they use orbital depots for purposes type of link arguments. I think that was the wrong focus. I think that at the end of it, they are winning an inevitability argument, and which ends up making a lot of your impact claims inevitable. And I think that there's not enough of a distinction in terms of how you access what your internal link, besides just they use things like the orbital depots, whatever, for their purposes. I think there needs to be more of an explanation of that, more of a link argument that is predicated around being, as opposed to just these kind of hegemony as a like your disposable able bodies link argument, which I think that the impact and the links you're going for are a bit too disconnected in that way, which is why I think that those other kind of impacts you're going for would have been the correct focus for the 2NR. And as it is, I think that I have to, without having more of an explanation of the ethics argument, I have to make some sort of calculation. I think, given that it's inevitable, the AF impacts outweigh, because these forms of destruction are inevitable. One argument that takes me a while is your one defensive argument to the inevitability arguments, that the Watson argument that where we fill in. I think there needs to be more explanation of this argument about how other countries. You just say that these structures don't need hegemony, and I think that the AF does not do a particularly good job of explaining why the U.S. is key. They have reasons why hegemony and having stable power is key. But there should have been much more explanation on why the U.S. isn't necessarily key, but I don't think you do enough in the 2NR on why the U.S. is not key, which means that I end up kind of going to the evidence on both. And I think the evidence, I think their evidence is probably better on why U.S. military power is specifically key to this. I think that more explanation in the 2NR, similar to kind of what you have in the 2NC, would have made this easier and would have given you some real good defense to leverage against their inevitability arguments and against just their impact claims in general. I think it would have been defense that took out a lot of their impacts, and you probably would have outweighed with more explanation on them.
Well, first of all, congratulations on obviously a great tournament. There's anyone, anytime, to be in a very close debate in the courts of the ToC. It's like, that is awesome. I think the AF has a better explanation of how the world works, with their data, with their empirics, with the decline in violence, with their social science. And I thought the AF was a little bit ahead in that debate, even for the first half or slightly more of the debate when the neg, when you all were hotly contesting it. I think the AF was a little bit ahead. And then I think that dropped off just a bit in the 2NR, in part for the simple reason that most of it was on the hegemony flow, and for time and other reasons you kind of organized your speech to go elsewhere. So the short version is that I think they have a slightly better, they have a better explanation of how the world works, and then similar to what Sheila said, I think you all find yourself at a slight disadvantage, whether it's your fault or mine, because I don't really understand big components of the K. It's very hard for me to explain. Again, whoever's fault it is, it's very hard for me to explain how this sort of, I can understand the portion of the K where it's like there's value to all objects, not just humans. I'm with you there, although I think the app is smart to say that a war of the type they're describing would be bad for all those objects and other species and everything on Earth. What I don't understand as much, it's hard for me to envision what others they devalue, what violence happens to them, what damage happens to these other objects, and conceptually I sort of get it, but even when I go back to the cards, I just can't explain it back to them enough to say that it outweighs their head stuff. I, as a last comment, came surprisingly close to voting on the hedge defense, the two cards that sort of say Obama is already heading that way, the system has already changed, China's on board, it's all peaceful, not to worry about hegemony stuff. Because I think line by line wise, you all don't do a lot to those two cards. They're in the 2NC and extended pretty clearly in the 2NR. But it gets very much caught up in everything else. I think, first of all, that it's nearly impossible to zap that to zero when I'm finding their big picture of the world more compelling. And second, and more important, if the app wins their sense of the world and defends all these concepts of hegemony and their ways of creating stability, I can't vote on the K, basically. You know, we sort of have these two big competing views of the world, as best I can tell. And in certainly the way you all describe your framework, and even in theirs, if their vision of things is right, I have to vote out. So that's the big picture, and obviously happy to answer the question.
How did you evaluate the question of etc.?
I think largely that.
Sorry, not wrong question. What I meant to say was the argument about the focusing on those that are invisible from the. Oh, is this you're not sure which.
The app. I'm not sure if their answers will vary, but the app very pointedly and convincingly said that the violence that would result from a decline in U.S. hegemony would do violence to invisible populations too. I'm certainly, at the end of the debate, quite concerned about structural violence done to people and even other species, and et cetera, who normally fall outside of our policy debates. But I think that a lot of that is worse. Based on data and otherwise, I think that a lot of visible violence and maybe some invisible violence is increased or done to them in hegemony declines.
Where's that argument in the 1AR?
The argument in the 1AR is the hegemony stuff on the case about all the data about the violence that would happen, and then on the K, the 1AR to be a lot clearer about this. When the 1AR says war is inevitable, it's the root cause of these concerns, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's enough there that at the very top, when they say war is inevitable and terms things, you know, it's not a whole lot. But when the 2AR has me convinced, and I go back and I look at it, and I believe their data that is the result. If I think there's going to be a war, it's hard for me to say that that's not the case. It's hard to imagine a war that wouldn't hurt everything.
How could I convince you to even in the face of war to care about the invisibles population, etc. Because the main reason I structured the 2NR around that is because I felt explicitly in the 2NC that was one of the overview questions at the top is is each and every seconds owe ourselves to the other, the invisible population should come first. I felt it's almost as if it was on a dissad and I said time frame first and they dropped time frame first
Except the difference is, and I should shut up here, but except the difference to my mind is that their impact also does damage to the people you think are invisible in policy debates. And the other big problem is that, first of all, I don't quite understand the warrant to some of the extinction stuff. And second of all, if I could explain to myself and them what the alternative changed that would stop the concerns they have about war, etc., that would go a long way.
Okay.
I think if you want the alternative or the more of the just basic functionality arguments, more development with 2NR, then I think that becomes more relevant, but the kind of inevitability that makes your impacts inevitable.
Okay.
I think that's also the reason why, you know,
Well, when you say inevitability, are you referring
things like lash out transition that inevitably will occur, which is where I think the alternative could probably resolve a lot of these. You know, if you explain what the world of the alternative looks like.
I felt like obviously there's very serious time allocation problems in the 1.5. Do you think that was in the theory debate, right? Or
I mean, I'm not willing to say it's necessarily a theory debate because I think you have to spend a lot of time on the theory debate, at least for me, on this counter plan.
If perm do the plan and then roll it back if it doesn't meet the condition, if I understand that correctly, I think that needs more time. If that permutation would announce the condition and say, if this is not met, this is getting rolled back.
yeah,
like
I guess the question though is like, where do I shape it?
Oh, I see.
I obviously didn't get this.
I think your theory arguments and your permutation answers need to be like self-reinforcing to each other. You know, the arguments you're making on theory should be reasons as to why why it's competitive and why the permutation doesn't work. And I think that's a way to figuring out the way to most efficiently kind of do that would allow you to save some time there.
Less on the legitimacy of the counter plan, more on its competition.
Okay.
Which is a bias of mine to begin with, but I think very true.
I have a question. In the 1AR, do you think I shouldn't have extended conditionality?
Yeah, I felt like you were taking page 2.
Yeah.
And that would have helped on the...
You got a decent time, you know.
Yeah.
Like the end result of it, I think, ended up being fine, but I think that might have been partly as a result of more 2.5 time than was needed on it.
Okay.
You can shave some time on the framework stuff too, I think. I mean, it's useful, but that time would be more useful on the K or the counterclaim. But less conditionality, less framework, more K, more counterclaim.
And given that there were areas where the 1AR was sparse, Zach, I think you should make sure that you tie your 2AR to what was said rather than forcing us to kind of have to think about, okay, was this... Because when the 1AR is sparse in some places, there's the risk that we're going to proceed the 2AR, as we knew there. And I think that enough was said in some key places, but I felt like I had to sort of come to that conclusion on my own. It would have been much faster for me if you'd been like, you know what, we might not have said much, but there's no answer to these arguments, and here's why they're compelling.
That's why I was trying to collapse the debate down just like lash out turns.
Yeah, but just make sure you tie it to something that
okay,
I agree. I agree. Why don't you go to the leadership flow? Even just perceptually, that's one place where the 1AR said a lot, and then the 2NRs, even just putting it on that sheet of paper.
Going back there myself and going, oh, this is why these arguments are messed up, because there are arguments that are getting mixed into the flows.
Right. And you're extending those arguments, but it makes a huge difference judging to see where that is. I couldn't agree more.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good debate, guys.
Listen, congratulations,
Thank
guys.
you.
Great run, okay? Great already, right?
It's scary, actually.
I know it's just sorry, yeah,
Nathan was debating Maverick at the Michigan.
They came in with like electric tape mustaches and goatees. Yes, it's lovely. I found one stuck in my purse yesterday.
Tell Rothenbaum I love him. He's a man. Jackie, she knows.
I know you have many people want to, which I'm leaving right now because the Lundins are leaving. I'm sorry to say that, but and I think oh, you lost you never know.
Hey, JD.
Oh,
JD.
Okay, let's do this.
Thank you so much.
Very proud of you. Thank you.
Are you okay versus Jimmy?
think that's good.
We don't want to go back at like.
Oh, hell yes, I do.
What is this?
That is absolutely totally.
I
Oh, no.
It's okay, we just don't want to get back.
Inaccurate.
We must take some time for the immediately.
No, I can be kind of this like.
I don't know not by, but I have to.
Correct. Yeah, for sure.
I think it's going to right after
Maybe
rather than and maybe
I'll let you know.
take out that shit. I don't think you'll.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think.
Oh,